Okay, let me move on to today's topic that is shamanism. Maybe you have heard a lot about this worldview, and now I'm using one presentation of a student some years ago. Okay, because I found that very good. Okay, actually, so these are the contents, and he has made some interesting quiz. Okay, you can guess the answer, right? What is the subject of this presentation? It's not shampoo, it's not the chamise, but it's shamanism, right? Okay, next. You can watch this video, but I skip it. This is an introductory video about shamanism, okay? Now, what is shamanism? It is a worldview, but it's a nature-centered worldview. I have introduced what the worldview is in the first session. So shamanism together with Hinduism is very much nature-centered, and whereas man-centered worldview, you can find here existentialism and postmodernism. And finally, God-centered worldview you can find in Islam and Christianity, right? Now, what is the definition of shamanism? Roughly speaking, you can say that it's a primitive belief practiced by shamans that an unseen world of gods, demons, and ancestral spirits have a relationship with human for cure of illness, prophecy, etc. Then who is shaman? Shaman is originally from the word in Siberia, Tungus. Tungus word meaning one who knows. It's a priest or a priestess who uses his or her ability for the purpose of curing the illness, divining the hidden and controlling events. From there, we have the word shaman, and it is very universal worldview. You can find not only in Asia, but also in America, also in Europe, and even in Africa. Well, in Africa, it is called witchcraft. It's a little bit different word, but basically it's the same. So you can find some pictures of shamans like that. Maybe in Africa, they use different instruments like this. Also some animal pictures, human beings. And this is the typical shaman in Korea. We call her Mu Dang. Mu is from the Chinese word. In Chinese word, if you look at the word Mu, you can find the two different words, heavenly word and the earthly word. And there are two people, okay, in between. So shaman or Mudang is the medium between the spiritual world and the actual world that we live in. But she also uses some instruments, and also here you can find some pictures like that, right? Well, there are two different kinds of shaman. In Korea, for instance, we call it for first learning shaman. We call it in Korean 학습 무. For instance, if she has any children, daughter or son, she teaches her child, or she can adopt anyone, of course. She teaches how to become a shaman. That is the learning shaman. But there is another case called spirit coming shaman. In Korean, we call it 강신무. That means one day a child or a lady is very sick, and yeah, you cannot find what's going on. if you have a medical test, it's all normal, but she or he is really sick. So when they meet this shaman says, "Oh, the spirit has come upon you, so you have to be a shaman." So she or he can be a shaman. Normally, we have a female shaman called Mudang in Korea, but sometimes we have a male shaman. We call it Baksu. You can find that word also in the Bible. Well, what is shamanism? A little bit further, it is the worldview that sees everything as spirit, very spiritism, spiritual worldview, like very similar to pantheism, everything is God, animism, everything has spirit, New Age, very spiritual worldview, right? And the second keyword is channeling. Channeling means seeking for connection with the spirits, yeah, between spirits and human beings. So they call the dead people's spirits. They believe the spirit of the dead people can protect us, especially some famous people like military leaders or famous kings and things like that. Actually, you can find also this kind of thing in the Bible. When King Saul, the first king, was in danger, he tried to get some advice from a shaman in Endor. So he went there, disguised himself so that she cannot recognize him as a king. But finally, she could recognize Saul the king. And Saul the king, King Saul asked her to call the spirit of Samuel. And she did, according to the Bible, and Samuel rebuked King Saul. Maybe you remember the story, but many theologians, many Bible scholars think that it's not real spirit of Samuel, because in the New Testament we can find that if you died, you can never come back to this earth, this world as a spirit, you see? So that is the kind of a little bit tricky play of the evil spirits. That's why God strictly forbids to have any contact with the spirits. You can find that in the 5 books of Moses, especially Leviticus or Deuteronomy. Shamans use various tools and methods for channeling. Differs by countries and cultures, but she always tried to connect with spirits, to have goals, to achieve something, like for healing or casting out demons or things like that. So sometimes they use bells, drums, songs, dancing. Dancing is very interesting because in Korea, if you have ever seen shamans dancing, normally shamans dance on fire, for instance, but shamans are not hurt at all. It's very strange. And also sometimes some Korean shamans dance on the very sharp sword, but they are not hurt at all because they are filled with evil spirits, and evil spirits can have some kind of miraculous performances to attract the people. And it's close to occult rather than religion. It's very occult, very evil spirit related. Yeah? And it usually can be found in Asia, Latin America, but virtually exists in the whole world. It's very common phenomena, common worldview, very ancient worldview. And it can also find in this kind of card or board game as well, normally in the West. Now, what's this is just a short quiz. What do shamans not serve? Okay, of course they serve spirit of stone, devils, ancestral spirits, but not God of the Bible. Right. There are many symbols of shamanism like that. It can be various. Okay. Some shamans, famous persons, Kate Fox, Margaret Fox, they received some messages from recently dead spirit. So they started an American spiritualist movement in the 19th century. Yeah, it's just one example. What are the strong points of shamanism? Okay, it can draw people who are sick. Yeah, sometimes they practice healing, and it tells about one's future. So it's kind of fortune telling. Yeah, if you want to know about your future, you can give some money to shamans, and shamans can tell your fortune in the future. But sometimes you cannot trust them, of course. Third, it easily permitted to other religions. It's very syncretistic, very compromising, so you can find some shamanistic aspects in Buddhism, especially in Korea, also in Confucianism, and also in Christianity, of course. Yeah. So, there are some weak points, of course. It has no unified doctrine to be called as religion. That means it is not a highly advanced worldview like Buddhism or Confucianism, because in Buddhism and Confucianism you have a lot of books. It's a very advanced system of worldview. But in shamanism you cannot have any kind of books, you see? They have only good dancing and some playing music, that's it. It is not a systematic worldview. Okay? So, number two, it involves hallucinogenic method in channeling. It's kind of ecstasy, you see? So it's very spiritual. Sometimes it looks very magical, but it's always the play of evil spirits. Number three, blessing is the main purpose, not God. So this blessing, you mean earthly blessing, present blessing, not eternal blessing that we are talking in the Christian worldview. Number four, no love or community spirit. It's very individualistic, it's very egoistic. Yeah? I can show you another PPT here that I have summarized as the problems of shamanism. So shamanism has only this ritual, you can say. So it seeks fortune through mystic and magic divination. It's very mystical, it's very magical. So it is not a based on sound doctrine, you see. And also it is very fatalistic determinism. You have to accept your fate. Yeah, you cannot change it. So it's very passive worldview. Seeks simply earthly blessing. I have already mentioned that. And it lacks an appropriate historical cultural perspective. What I mean by that is that in shamanism you cannot have any cultural achievement. For instance, in Buddhism you have a big temple, also in Hinduism, also in Confucianism. But in shamanism you don't have any buildings. You don't have any big cultural achievements. And you don't have any scientific achievement. Well, we have a Buddhistic university, Confucian University in Korea, but we have no shamanism. Because shamanism cannot have that kind of academic worldview. You see? And it lacks a proper ethic. So it's very relative, it's very capricious. You just seek your own blessing now and here. That's it. Okay? So that's my summary of the weak points of shamanism. This is another picture. There are many kinds of shamans. This is an African style, also in Siberia, maybe in South America. They use some skulls of the cows. They use some kind of instruments, kind of witchcraft, kind of magical doctors. Okay. So final point, I would say, what are the Christian alternatives? Number one, there's no unified doctrine to be called as religion. But the Bible has a perfect doctrine. You can find the Bible verse here. Number two, involves hallucinogenic method in channeling. God strictly forbids that, okay? You can make a direct relationship with God just by calling him Abba Father, as we have just shared, right? Blessing is the main purpose, not God, but we have to seek first the kingdom and his righteousness. God should be the main purpose, and his will, his blessing should be the most important blessing. No love for community, but God is love, and we have a community of Christians. That's the big difference. Of course, we have a lot of cultural achievements, academic, scientific achievements. We have also the Bible, right? But in Leviticus, God strictly forbids that kind of shamanistic activities. Also here, 2 Kings, right? This is the last two open questions. Why would God prohibit to do shamanistic acts? You can think and you can give your feedback. Second, there are many verses about blessings in the Bible. What do you think is the standard for the faithful blessing? Kind of earthly blessing, okay? Do you think praying for the exam for university admission is against Christianity? Why or why not? You can think about that and give your answer. Thank you for your attention, and we'll see you next time.